Welcome, everybody, to Coffee for Closers. We're back in action after a few weeks off due to the COVID-19 stuff. I'm here with Rick Kallmeyer.
How we doing, everybody?
Hey.
Good to be here.
Welcome to it. And we're going to be chatting with Mr. Johnny Rosier over in Louisiana, talking all about virtual appointments. So, Johnny, you there? Are you with us?
I am, yeah. Good afternoon to you folks.
Yeah, so, we obviously has been taking a little bit of a hiatus, kind of figuring out a lot of what's been going on in the virtual world since COVID-19 came on. And we wanted to make sure we put an update out to all the advisors out there, talking a little bit about, obviously, what virtual processes have worked, which ones have not worked. And I thought, obviously Rick is talking with tons of our advisors out in the field every day. Johnny, you've been one of the most successful at kind of bridging that gap almost immediately out of the gates, working with Fed employees, working with state employees, working with just, you were just mentioning before we came on here, people in your hometown that have kind of strolled in as some opportunities. So we just want to talk a little bit about that and see what your thoughts were. I mean, you were just talking to us before about some cases that you were working on, but maybe you could tell us kind of what you did originally to pivot to this new appointment process.
Okay.
Right out the gates. What did you do first?
Well, it was an easy pivot for myself and our team around because, we travel a lot and do a lot of live seminars from Vermont to North Dakota to northern Florida to West Texas. So, we're used to being gone a lot and then following up with those leads through conference calls and videos. So, we obviously can't stay in those cities on an ongoing basis. So, but we do go back to those places a lot. So it has cut back on our travel. But, as far as the technology, we were already using an e-app process for the most part and had already several of us signed up for Zoom or GoToMeeting, one of those platforms. So that wasn't too much of a learning curve for us. I know guys that came from the paper application world, all the way over to this that quickly. That was a learning curve, and it was a learning curve for me. But I went through that learning curve 3 or 4 years ago, and was already past that there. I think one of the things that's helped everybody, whether we want to admit it or not, but now the customer has to do business that way as well. In the past, we had to make a decision whether we wanted to do it what we call the old way, go see them, sit down, have coffee, meet somewhere. And now the customer doesn't have the luxury of making that decision either. So even if their hand has been forced to some degree. That's right. It has been forced, and now that gives us a little more leverage to apologize that we're not tech savvy. In the past, if you weren't tech savvy, it made you look illiterate. And now people, when I get on with them, I say, look, based on your internet connection and my internet connection, we may have a short delay here. And I'm a federal expert, a benefit expert, but I'm not a tech expert. So, I just say that on the front end and get that out of the way.
I've noticed you do that on the last webinar we did.
I do, because I'm certainly telling the truth. I'm definitely not a tech expert, but I can move my way around. But, at first when we switched over with the COVID-19, most of my team was wanting to do conference calls because it's so much easier to dial a phone number. And I said, we've got to see these people and they've got to see us. I mean, we've got to be able to see that body language and those facial expressions and whether they're taking notes or not. I'll give you an example. I was on once a Sunday afternoon, actually yesterday before we're recording this today. And this lady was literally, if I mentioned the name of any insurance company or financial institution, I could see her reaching over to her desktop. She was Googling what I was saying. I was on there with one of my teammates, and I text my teammate. I said, "You do realize she's Googling, what we're saying right now," which was fine. But I wouldn't have been able to know that on a phone call,
But that's it. Like, a lot of guys and gals, I think, are realizing, like, in the earlier parts of this, we were so convinced that you could get away with the phone call. Like, I know, Rick, you've chatted with a few folks that had said something similar, right?
Well, that's a simple question. If you have the choice of watching your favorite sport on TV on a 70 or 80-inch screen, or do you have the choice of sitting in your car and listening to it on radio? Which one are you going to pick? I mean, you're going to pick the video option. That's why television, put a big hurt on radio. When that first came along. You guys are a lot younger than me. I do vaguely remember this, but to kind of put it in perspective, when John F. Kennedy was running for president against Richard Nixon, it was the first televised presidential debate in American history. All the other debates had been on radio.
I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, Kennedy crushed him because he looked so much better on TV.
Yeah, Nixon won the Nixon won the debate from the radio audience, but from the television audience, he lost because he was sweating, and the radio audience could not see that. And so, visual, everybody says body language, nonverbal communication is more important than verbal. Well, if all those things are true, then we need to make it happen. And I have people who say, on my team, well, they don't like video conference. Well, it's really not important whether they like it. You have to lead people where you want to go, and you have to tell them, hey, I want you to see me and know I'm legit. Another thing that most advisors don't think about, when you ask for a video conference, you just set yourself apart from a strange phone call from a strange phone number that all of us call a scam, phone call. I mean, scammers don't use video conference. So video conference lets them know you are legitimately in business and that you're a real person. And, with the technology now, you can make the backdrop look any way you want it to look. The last one I did yesterday, it literally looked like I was sitting in front of my office building, so they could see my building and see my logos on the windows, and I made a joke about it. I told the guy, I said, look, now, if an 18-wheeler comes by and runs me over, y'all call 911. But I mean, seriously, you can make a small area look very professional.
No doubt.
And
no doubt. Yeah. But you know what? I've seen that. I have seen like a lot of advisors try and push the issue to do an event, all throughout the phone call, just nothing but phone call all the way through the appointment process. It doesn't seem to work. All they're getting to the point is pushing off the eventual sale to when this COVID-19 thing's over, right? Like that's the difference between advisors that have been doing Zoom calls and those that are just sticking to the phone call. Is this Zoom call or the video chat or FaceTime, or whatever you can do to convey your face seems to be working to get those apps signed prior to the end of this quarantine,
Right.
Yeah, it's almost an exact thing of what I've seen. Most people that are able to get the client on a Zoom call or any kind of a web conference meeting where you're looking kind of eye to eye are the ones that are really still writing business right now through all this. And you're spot on, Alex. The ones that are really getting people on the phone, or that I know in the initial, I was doing a lot of the contacts with the advisors and setting them up on Zoom, and the ones that weren't really feeling it or weren't really about going through the whole process or unsure of it and doing mostly phone calls are the ones I'm still seeing that are hitting those walls of, Rick, I've got a great pipeline for when this all ends, but right now, and
they're stalled out. They're completely stalled out by this point.
Absolutely. Now, Johnny, what kind of, issues have you run across, or are you guys having issues as far as getting the clients onto the Zoom meetings? I know sometimes I've run into issues with emails not being able to get on or getting to the wrong email or connecting. Are you guys having much connectivity problems with the clients?
That's rare, and I really did think that would be a bigger issue. The only issue I've really seen, which is no problem really, but sometimes I'll see the client is watching it from their iPhone, instead of a desktop or a laptop. And if we are showing them illustrations or, graphics or whatever, I see them holding the phone up closer. In fact, I saw one person had a magnifying glass, but she knew that ahead of time. She said, I'm going to be watching it from a small screen, so I've got a magnifying glass. Well, what that showed me is, first of all, she obviously had some interest because she had taken time to go find a magnifying glass and be prepared. So I took that as a positive sign. But we've only had really, I had one recently with a prospective client in West Virginia, and it really came a serious thunderstorm in my little town. So it was delayed, but we both knew that, and I texted her and I told her, I said, it's about a 3-second delay between me talking and you hearing it. So let's give each other that 3-second courtesy. But it was a weather issue. But I mean, do we have weather issues in real life where we drive to people's office and the weather gets bad and we can't go? Yes. Do we ever get there and the electricity goes off? Yes. I mean, so there are no more technical difficulties than we have in a normal world. I mean, so they're different issues. They're not, they're not more issues. Right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, do you see any issues with, like, I guess the confirmation process in between? Like, has it been that hard to, like, get them from that first conversation to the video chat? Has it been any harder, or just same kind of issues you would normally have?
No, I have not. The only thing and we've corrected this, the only thing we've seen is on our first visit with someone, we were telling them after we chatted with them and talked to them and so forth, we were telling them what we would need to run their federal analysis or their state analysis or Social Security report or whatever. And we said, here's what we need. We're going to email that to you. And we did find that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And, so what we're doing now is we say, here's what we need. Most of this you're going to know off the top of your head. So let me get as much information as I need now. And when I get into your report, if I'm missing something, so we go ahead and try to get whatever data we need on that first visit, just like we would do if we were meeting with somebody the first time. Now, that was one mistake we were making, is having a courtesy visit with them and then letting them know what we would need and get it later. And so we've resolved that issue there. But we've had a few folks, literally call us and say, hey, I can't make it at 2:00. My boss called another webinar, so can we change it? So we have the typical changing it to another time and things like that. One thing we do when we get someone on the phone, and it's what I already was doing in seminars, but whether we're getting a state lead through, some other source or a federal lead through one of our federal webinars, or I'm doing a lot of public educator webinars in Alabama, when we get them on the phone, we say, first of all, why did you click on and join the webinar? What is it you don't know about your benefits that you're trying to find out? Okay, so we ask them, I do the same thing at a live seminar. Why are you here tonight? Why didn't you go home and, have dinner with your family? What is important to you that you don't know that you may feel confident that we might know the answer for? So that's how we start our conversations off with. And usually they'll start, singing like a little songbird, and you start listening for those opportunities.
What are the big concerns? Like, what's everybody worried about right now?
It's kind of across the board. They're worried about Social Security. I had 2 or 3 this week that was their issues. I mean, I had a guy call me this morning that we just rolled money, and he's just turning 62, so he's worried to death about that.
What about their Social Security, though? Like, I mean,
what's that?
Like, what is it about their Social Security? Just how to
claim
it?
They don't know. I mean, this guy's a sharp guy in the petroleum business. He did not know if he worked at 62. I mean, if he drew it at 62, and he went and got another job, making more than $18,240, he did not know he would be penalized, and he thought if he put his Social Security on hold and then picked it back up at 69, that he would start drawing it at age 69. And so, and that's one of the things we have that you guys at Megastar prepared for me is I call it my circle of resources. And the first thing we do is show them this circle. And we basically tell them this circle of resources will tell you what we do. And it's got the Learning Lab tab that talks about, hey, we are Social Security experts. It's got our GPS tax center. We do taxes. We prepare taxes. We can look at your returns and see if there's errors there. We go over estate planning navigators. We tell them, as you get older, you do need a will. You do need power of attorneys. We can facilitate those things. So I tell them all those things as part of our service package, because I don't know which one is maybe their hot button. And if they're a state worker, I talk about pension navigators. If they're a federal employee, I talk about, FEBA and the role that they play. So we spend quite a bit of time on that circle, and let them know that we are the one place they can get. This gentleman now I was on the phone with earlier. Now he's already agreed to move his money. In fact, one of our associates is out there completing his application right as we record this. But I told him, because he mentioned where his money's at now, and I won't mention that company, but it's a mutual fund company that we all know. And I said, let me ask you a question. Whoever you call at that company, are they a Social Security benefit expert? Can they help you? And he says, well, no. I said, well, that's why you probably called me this morning instead. And we let people know in federal business, TSP person is a person sitting in a cubicle. They're there to transact your TSP 75 or 99 form. They're not there to help you coordinate all your benefits and things like that. It really does mind boggle me that someone with $300,000 to $500,000 in their TSP really doesn't realize that they don't have a dedicated human being to talk to every time they call. I mean, that makes no sense to have that much money and not have a specific human being that their name and you have their cell phone number on how to reach them.
Right. Yeah. Well, what about your video platform of choice? What is it? Are you using Zoom?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What about your video platform of choice? Like what video platform are you using for the appointment?
I subscribe to both Join.me and I subscribe to Zoom. I prefer Zoom. It just seems to be easier for everybody. I think about a year or two ago, I didn't think Zoom was quite that easy, but Zoom is our preferred. Everybody on our team seems to favor Zoom.
Yeah. I've kind of I was always a go-to guy. You know that, Johnny, Rick. You know that.
Yeah.
I was using go-to everything. And through this quarantine, I've absolutely fallen in love with Zoom. Yeah. Now, Rick, you're huge into Join.me.
Yeah, I've used that for years, and through this kind of found Zoom. So shameless plug to Zoom. Give us a little comp bonus if you guys don't mind. But
yeah, right.
No, they've been a phenomenal platform. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. The Join Me platform I always thought was good because it would allow the consumer just to click a link, right? Like that's all they had to do is just go to this link, this URL, this website per se, and there's my screen right there, right?
What I really liked about it is how easy the link is. You didn't have to do the whole process of sending an email. I know that's not a big step or really a large part of it, but you can just type in join.me/Johnny Rosier, and that's what will pull you up into it rather than Zoom.us and then a bunch of alphanumerics behind it. That's what I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah, it was definitely easier. I thought to be an easier experience, but I think, like Johnny was saying in the beginning, what's happened is there's a lot of folks now that have had their hand forced into this new virtual world, and they've found the process. Like they know that. So you're almost better off choosing a platform that's widely used. Right. And right now, Zoom's clearly the winner in that. So I do love.
In fact, I jokingly told somebody the word Zoom is quickly becoming the word Coca-Cola. Coke it actually means soft drink. In the South where I live, it doesn't necessarily mean Coca-Cola. Kleenex is the same thing. It's a brand name, but we call Band-Aid. Yep. And Zoom's kind of becoming that word. No matter what platform you use, everybody says the word Zoom. Yeah.
So true. So true. And so is it like a one appointment process? Like what are you doing? Phone call, then a one appointment, 2 appointments, 3 appointments? What is it?
I know it's 2 appointments. We do what we call an introductory call to let them know who we are, what we do, and how we got their name from a webinar, whatever, and just introduce ourselves, introduce that circle of benefits, ask them specifically, why did you tune into the webinar? Why did you click this button? So that's our first call. Tell them what we need to run their analysis for them. Try to gather as much of that during that introductory call as we can.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of advisors probably make this next mistake. Fortunately for me, my team, we've got this part down, but we say, okay, let's go ahead and schedule our second visit now. Okay. A lot of advisors, I think, just by default, well, let me get all this together and then I'll call you back and we'll schedule time. Well, the dentist office doesn't do that. This Friday, I've got my 6-month checkup. I guarantee you when I leave the doctor's office this Friday, they'll hand me a card telling me when my next 6-month checkup is. They won't even ask me. They'll just say, we've got you down for next, Friday at 8 a.m., Johnny, November, whatever date. If
that's exactly right. I mean, you're waiting you're waiting for that. I mean, that's your close for your first appointment.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And you got to realize, from a webinar, so they clicked on, I always say, think of that person sitting in a rocking chair going backwards and forwards. They're basically saying yes. They said yes to the invitation. They said yes to logging in to the webinar. They said yes to sitting through it 25, 35 minutes. They said yes to filling out the survey. They said yes to that introductory call that we have with them, that introductory conference video, whatever. So they've said yes a lot of times. So go ahead and get that second video conference nailed down and let them know. Now, this next video conference is going to take approximately 45 minutes or a little longer, depending on how many questions you have, sir. And if you think of any questions prior to then, go ahead and email them, and we'll research those answers, before that. But you got to get that nailed down. And I think a lot of people probably don't do that. I think they just wait and call back, and then they get into that game of they don't answer the phone, and should I call back? I wonder if they're avoiding me, all that, trying to outthink yourself. And so that's real important to get that second. And then on the second one, we have an agenda, and we have it on one of our screens. We have a PowerPoint, and it says, here's our agenda. Our agenda is to go through your analysis. Our agenda is to hit on some areas of concern that we found. And then the third item, we've got some suggested paths that we think you should consider to solve those concerns that we found. I mean, that's literally, we say it almost verbatim what I just said right there.
That's exactly right. You want to set that expectation going into that call, right?
Right.
You've got to.
So, Johnny, I'd like to clarify something, I guess, in my own head. Prior, you guys were having some issues. What you were saying is you were doing really a 3-call close. You're doing like a first phone call as like an introductory, and then saying, hey, look, we're going to need these statements and this information. Doing that in the second call going through kind of the fact finder and a client appointment, and then third call close. And you're saying you corrected that by moving your first appointment and your second appointment together, doing an introductory, asking questions, qualifying, getting other documents, having the report ready for your second call close.
Yes, exactly.
I think that is where a lot of our guys are losing it, and a lot of people are kind of missing out on those clients. Just those two keys there is doing that introductory call, getting them on the phone, and not having, I guess, the push enough to really do that kind of fact-finding appointment there, to really get some teeth into the client, and then not setting up a direct second appointment. You could pinboy it to the 60% of lost clients right now.
Sure.
And I'm gonna tell you too, and I've got advisors on my team that are guilty of this, and they do a good job, so I'm not going to debate the issue with them. But I will say we work a lot in teams, and you guys know that we split a lot of business here. In fact, I'd say 90% of our business is some kind of split, not necessarily 50-50, because if I'm on the phone sitting in my office with no cost, I obviously don't take 50% of the case. But we work a lot on split. So I'll give you a good example. Last week we had a doctor, a federal employee from a VA hospital, had clicked on one of the links just for more information. He had not attended a webinar. And so myself and one of our associates, it was her lead. And she just said, I've got Johnny on here as a resource. He's one of our federal employee instructors, benefit instructors that travels the country, but I've got him on in case you've asked some questions I don't know the answer. And he's not old enough to move his TSP. He did want to look at life insurance with long-term care, so that was a fairly easy sell for her to make. But he had about 13 or 14,000 in a separate Roth IRA with a mutual fund company, and he had said early in the conversation that it had dropped from 15 to 13,000. Now that's not very much money, but when we got to the end, the associate asked me, she says, Johnny, have we overlooked anything with Dr. So-and-so? I said, no, not really. I said, the only thing I would suggest is that he transfer that $13,000 over to what we call our retirement vaccine program, where he can no longer lose any money. I said, that's too small of amount of money to keep possibly losing money. So I would transfer that if it were me. He said, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. Okay. So that was,
wow.
she made $1,000 commission, $800, whatever it is on that. She wouldn't have made that. What's that?
I said, that's not bad for a question.
Yeah.
No. I mean, we had to tell him the name of the insurance company. He didn't even ask. He just said, yeah, go ahead and do that. But that's because we had done a good job so far. But that's working that team approach. And what I find with people that don't like to work on a team approach, I think a lot of times it gets into greediness. They don't want to share their compensation. And, I was taught back in the 1970s, 50% of something beats 100% of nothing. And, so if you're not willing to split business, at least until you learn how to do it, you're making a mistake. But I can tell you, our group works in teams, and 2 against 1, if you want to look at it from a battle point of view, is major. That helps us a lot. And like yesterday when I talked about the video conference on Sunday afternoon, that was a 3-way video conference. That was one associate in one city, the client in the state of Mississippi, and me here at my little office. So it comes across like more important to them. Hey, these people got 2 or 3 resources I can contact if I need something.
But that's what you want. You want to display that. You want to display that like girth, that power.
Right.
Right. Like this isn't just some small guy, somewhere that got a hold of my name somehow. Like the more you can show yourself as like part of this bigger organization, that's what people want. They want something that they can
absolutely.
trust, right?
Absolutely.
And,
right.
And that's what we've noticed in a lot of our marketing across different programs is the more secluded the marketing, the more about something small, the more you're fitting into this scam environment that's become really prevalent in this COVID-19 area. And so the more we can pitch from the Learning Lab or from FIBA or from just a bigger organization as a whole, the better we've seen as far as results. I mean, you look at FIBA, which has had, in our federal program, has 1.3 million subscribers now.
Yeah, we're about to.
So 1.3 million subscribers across the country. And the response, Johnny, you've seen it on your webinars, hundreds of people showing up for webinars that are, basically part of the reason I feel like they're showing up, I guess, to make it easier, is the fact that FIBA's been around for years now doing workshops across the country. FIBA, Johnny, you have obviously been a major part of that. And I think the consumer culture right now is lending itself to, I want to talk to somebody that's part of a mass group rather than just a one-off situation.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. If I were to give anybody our secret to success over here, it would be working in teams. It would not be because we've cut out the second appointment and made it part of the first one. I mean, all those are steps in the process, but us working as a team and me being able to say, I've got a full-time CPA on our staff. If you ever have a tax question, I'll try to facilitate it. But if I don't know the answer, I know where to get it. I use federal counsel, with Patrick and Calvin. I say, I've got access to 2 guys with 34 years experience that are basically walking the encyclopedia. So you're right. People want to feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. Absolutely.
I think it applies even on like the smaller scale too, you can be, hi, I'm Rick Kallmeyer, I sell insurance, or hi, I'm Rick Kallmeyer, president of Kallmeyer Financial Agency. Like even on the small scale, even if it's just still me at the office, like, it still has that kind of like,
but even more so, like if you could build yourself to even be a part of, I work with some of the largest insurance companies in the country, right? Like, or I work with the largest federal benefit education firm in the country. Like the more you can do that right now, because even look at like restaurant culture right now. Like when my wife, she's pregnant, obviously you know that. She is wanting to go out and eat and such, and I won't let her go to places that I feel like are too small. Might not be taking things as seriously as these big chains that might have more exposure. It's like in times of stress or something like that, we want to trust that because a company's bigger, they might be safer. Yeah. Big means safe. And that's like just inherent, I feel like, in human culture.
It's a primal tactic.
It's like a primal thing, right? And so now I'm seeing that in the financial sector too. I'd be shocked if people were not going and talking to their Raymond James guy or Edward Jones guy just because they're bigger. Whereas they might be willing to go talk to a retirement planner or some mom and pop shop down the road in times where things are decent, and I just want to find somebody that can give me a homey feel or something like that. But my mindset is maybe that guy doesn't know everything. Why doesn't he work as a head of Raymond James or something like that? So it's our advisor's job to be out there showing the facts that those Raymond James guys are screwing it up for everybody.
Yeah.
And the shops like mine that work with large groups, large organizations, are the ones that are have the safest clientele, the people that are surviving this mass exodus from normalcy, right? So
Right. Well, and going back to the seminars versus webinars, when someone comes to a seminar, just think about this. They are walking into a hotel or library or college campus meeting room. They're getting ready to walk up and shake hands with a complete stranger. That would be like me. My dad was a car salesperson for a lot of my childhood. I will not go shop for cars except on Sunday afternoon when there's no one there. I literally, to this day, I wait till Sundays and go find what I want. Then I go back and talk to somebody. And, a webinar is less threatening to them. They don't have to worry about what they wore. They don't have to worry about their dress code. They don't have to worry about a parking spot. They don't have to worry about if some of their coworkers, let me give you a good example if people don't think. A lot of federal employees, especially like they all work for, say, the VA, where they're in the same building, they don't want each other knowing that they're thinking about retiring because they don't want their boss finding out about it.
True.
So webinars are just less threatening to them all the way around. Much less threatening to them.
That's so true. I didn't even think about that, but that is so right. In a workplace environment, this digital place, this digital world has definitely lent itself to just make yourself feel big, because if I'm just,
I'm not trying to go back to the seminar world. I'm sure we'll go back to it to some extent, but I have found out how to do this. It makes more sense for the client and certainly makes more economical sense for me. And again, I like the conversation we just had about bigger than just me. I've had several advisors over the last 2 or 3 years. When I do a seminar, they would get up to introduce me, but they would end up telling about their self and their 30 years experience and all. And I said, you know what? This is not about you. This is about these people. Okay. They don't care, how great you and I may think we've been. That's not, they didn't show up for that.
But I'm not going to sign an app with a guy that doesn't, isn't from a bigger firm. Like, the bigger the guy can make me feel like it's not just I'm signing an app with this random dude somewhere or this random gal.
Right.
I'm signing an app or signing my life's work, retirement money all over to somebody that's part of an organization that does this regularly. That's what you want.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We send people to FIBA.com all the time. We've got our logo here called Retire Track Advisor. And I tell my guys, I said, look, use your own logo. Okay, identify yourself, but let people know you're part of the Retire Track Advisor network. And that network includes a guy with 40 years experience. It includes 2 retired school teachers, public educators that can help with state business. It includes, on my team, thankfully, it includes 2 retired federal employees, Renette and Cheryl. It includes a CPA. That sounds better than, Johnny Rosier financial advisor.
And you've been doing like e-apps and stuff for a while now too, right? Like, that's pretty simple. Like the closing of it, like wrapping up the deal, is that significantly harder right now, or?
Yeah, I get a lot of questions on that, Johnny, how we're doing, the TSP transfers online. So if you could touch on that, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. Well, on our PowerPoint, on our second call, our second appointment where we're going to close, or try to close, we put together, a generic PowerPoint, and we just go in and change out the name of whichever financial institution we're using for that particular product, and customize it a little bit to that person. But it's a shell that we use, and literally the last slide is this. Now let me share with you, Mr. Prospect, how this process works. Okay. And we'll just say it's a federal employee for this example. Okay. We're going to need a copy of your driver's license. We're going to need your social security number. We're going to need your beneficiary's name, birth date, social security number, address, and phone number. Okay. We're going to need your TSP account number. You're going to need to go to TSP to your account and complete a TSP 75. You're going to need to get it notarized. We can get on the phone with you while you're at your TSP account and walk you through that form. You're going to need to email that to us. And while you're doing these things, we will be opening you an account with XYZ Insurance Company. So you have to have an account number or a contract number, whatever word you want to use. We have to have that before we send it to TSP. Now, if we're doing a private transaction, we just don't say TSP. We need to get on the phone with your company, XYZ, find out what their transfer requirements are. Most of them use our paper. Some of them will do it online if it's coming from a 401k. Some of them it's a voice. They'll do it by voice. Some of them require a signature guarantee. So I'll get on the phone with you, with your provider, and you'll get them on the phone and give them permission to chat with me as one of your advisors, and I'll do all the legwork there. So we literally close by, we don't say, do you want to do this? Does this sound like a great idea? We don't say any of those things. We literally start explaining the process because they don't know the process. They absolutely don't know. They don't know if the check's coming to them. So we close by giving them information that they don't know. Now, here's what happens. Everything happens from whether you want to copy my driver's license right now, which means they've done it. All you got to do is finish doing the rest of it. Or you'll go to the other extreme. Well, I'm not sure if I want to do this yet or not. Well, I understand, Mr. Prospect. I understand that. Here's the information we're going to need, though, when you do make that decision. Okay. Now, notice there, I did not say if you make that decision. I said when. Okay. I'm always assuming, what's the old thing? ABC, always be closing.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. And so I'm always assuming that people will do business with me. I'm never assuming they will not. And I think a lot of producers are still using that word. Man, I hope I get this one. I hope this one goes my way. Well, hope don't work. Okay. I mean, there's no research on the word hope to see if it helps salespeople at all. So that word doesn't, it may keep you from, going crazy, but it doesn't help you sell anything.
I've read a lot of sales books and never found one called Hope or titled about hope.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, my CPA, I won't mention his name on this recording, but y'all knew who I'm talking about. When he first started, he says, well, I hope so-and-so, I hope so-and-so. I said, let me stop you right there. I said, don't ever use that word hope with me again.
Right.
I said, I hope my son didn't get cancer, but he got it anyway. I hope my sister didn't die, but she did. I said, so you need to start using the word when instead of the word hope. And if you're using the word hope, that means you're not confident about your own ability yet. When you start using the word when, that means you're totally confident in what you do.
Yeah, that's so right. Yeah. And I love the fact that you're letting them know, hey, we're going to set up this account. Meanwhile, I'm going to be setting up this account. That to me feels like this is already a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Well, and people always say your policy number. Okay. To me, policy number is an insurance policy.
Right.
Okay. So mutual fund companies, Edward Jones, Raymond James, all those, they use the word account number. They don't use policy number. Okay.
It's official.
It's official. I mean, that's the word in the financial institution world. We've just decided to stay with the word policy, and I understand legally, why, but you can say contract, account number, whatever you want to say, but don't use that word policy. Yep. I mean, it sounds like you're buying an insurance policy from somebody, and, words do matter. The way you say things matter, and the actual words you use can make or break you
I think account's a lot better. We have an account for everything now. I mean, it doesn't matter for, social media or gym or, whatever restaurants now. You have an account for everything. So I think it's a much better kind of blanket statement that everybody
feels irreversible.
Yeah.
It's like once you're going to be working on that, well, then I got to start doing my thing. I got to start going to TSP and filling that form out that Johnny wanted.
Yeah. Johnny said he's already going to have an account for me. All right, so when do we need this driver's license? Yeah,
right.
Yeah. That's powerful stuff.
And you can't be, I mean, literally, I had a lady 2 weeks ago in Tennessee, and she says, well, have you got time if I log into my TSP right now? I said, sure, go ahead and log in. I said, when you get in there, tell me where you're at. Tell me what screen you're looking at. I'll tell you exactly what buttons to push. Right. And now she had left the federal government and was working for a law firm. I said, now you'll need to get it notarized, but apparently if you're with a law firm, that should be fairly simple. Right, she said, yeah, that'll be the easiest part of it. And I said, just scan that to me. And she said, okay, you'll have it in the morning. I'll get my husband to sign it tonight. And, and I don't know if a lot of people know this right now, but TSP's changed the rules with COVID-19. Spouses have to sign, but spouses' signatures don't have to be notarized right now. And I don't think a lot of producers, that mail went over their head.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the world has just shifted. So if you haven't talked to us already about what's changed, absolutely. I know, Rick, you're talking with advisors left and right on that, but anyway.
Now, Johnny, I don't know if it comes into really a realm of privacy, but have you or anyone on your team done a kind of like, when somebody's looking for the policy statements or going into their TSP account, have you guys tried using like the share screen feature of Zoom to like kind of help them along and find like, just because I know how difficult sometimes it's like, hey, a button should be here, and you're like, well, are you on Chrome or are you on, Explorer, or, just using that Zoom feature to share screen. It's like, all right, no, you're going to have to scroll down right there. You see it. Have you guys tried that at all or use that or?
I think we've used that a time or two. We haven't really had to use it that much, but we have used that feature. Yes, absolutely.
That's interesting. All right, my man. Well, hey, I absolutely appreciate you shedding some light here. It's been obviously a very healthy dialogue. But, obviously you're a rock star. You've been doing this since day one. You were like one of the first advisors to really adapt to this new process. And so kudos to you for that. But hopefully these words will echo amongst the rest of the advisors out there. And, it doesn't just apply to your Fed stuff. I know you're doing all kinds of stuff in the private sector as well. You mentioned the petroleum guys. I know that has to do with a lot of those layoffs down there in the oil world where you're at. But thanks for joining us today and sharing some wisdom.
Hey, I enjoyed being with you guys. Hope it was helpful, and hope it'll help some of the guys around the country that are on our team.
Absolutely.
All right, Johnny. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care. So that's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, you get tons of questions on these things. Johnny's an interesting account. Obviously, he was pretty quick to it. Didn't have a lot of questions for us other than like, what do I use? Do I use Zoom or do I use Join Me or am I going to use GoToMeeting? And he had a lot of questions about how to do the webinar platform. Do I do GoToWebinar? I was a big fan of that. I think he's done that a few times, but now we've kind of moved to just the video recordings. But that's the big thing. Like, everybody that's adverse, and we talked about it in the very, very beginning there, everybody that's averse to wanting to do a video chat is basically just postponing the sale. You're not going to do a sale with somebody if they don't see you.
Yeah.
It's naive, unless you know the client. Unless
it's kind of like, I feel like that was kind of the thought process, right? Of like, well, now I can't meet in person, so people are more willing to do business over the phone, like over by phone call. And I think it really just traded one platform for the other. Like, you can't meet in person, but now other people are doing Zoom and doing these conference calls, so that just by phone call is still stuck in the middle there where, nobody's really, it still doesn't build trust. Like, you're still able to see the person one way, even if it's just moved online.
Yeah. You're not going to see trust executed over the phone. No. If I've never met you, I've never put a face to the name, I'm not going to move $500,000 to you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you might one or two.
You got your outliers. You always have your outliers.
There's always grandma, that just wasn't paying attention or was, buys everything off of QVC, that kind of gal, right? But the majority of folks, especially those that are in that pre-retiree phase and still can, even after a 30% drip in the market, obviously it's bounced back a tiny bit, but those that are still planning to retire, those folks want to meet the person that they're going to do business with. And so you're either delaying it, which we're seeing right now. A lot of advisors with this huge lull in business, right? Like they started with a ton of prospects at the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of people, their clients or their pipeline that already came to a workshop already, had been to one appointment maybe. Those people they had brought in and were starting to close. But now we're moving to this new phase where there's new prospects that have been generated through webinars or through lead gen or something else that we've done, some appointment setting. Those folks have never met this person.
Yep.
And the advisor that's refusing to do a video chat with that person, or at least not pushing the hand to do it, right? Because the client probably doesn't want to do it either, right? Like they're just willing to wait. But the advisor wants them to move quicker, obviously, right? And knows that they probably need to in case something went down again.
It's a trying time. Nobody's really sure kind of which way we're going. It could either go really well up or really well down. And I think we obviously understand that, from the advisory point of like, hey, look, better to, if things go down, have some downside protection than just stay where you are. Like, yes, it may have gone back up, but which way are we going to go? And I absolutely agree. I just think partially one, because it's like so much easier to just ignore a phone call, or even if you had a phone call or two with an advisor, to just push it off. I mean, we all get phone calls all the time. We all just hit the ignore button, and that's all you have to do to ever not have to deal with the person again. Eventually, they're going to like give up. But when you've actually like either seen somebody in person or like spend the time to be on a webinar, you hear me talk about friction all the time. I think really the more friction you can cause between you and a client to a certain degree really entrenches you both into it. It invests you into each other. When somebody's spent an hour on the phone with you and seen your office, even if it's online, they're a little bit more invested than the guy caught me when I was on the drive home and I listened to him while I was driving, Yeah,
I mean, that visual makes it so much more real. Like, you're really hurting somebody by not getting on the call. Like, you're wasting somebody's time. Where on the phone, it doesn't feel like I'm wasting anybody's time, right? But once and I think what Johnny does well, better than most, is he creates that urgency. He comes up with a reason why we need to hop on the horn right now, right? Or not on the horn, I should say, on the video chat, right? Like, why do we need to do this video chat? Well, we need to do a video chat because how else are you going to trust me? Right? I need you to know that we have all kinds of opportunities, and the best way for me to communicate those ideas with you is for me to touch base with you, to really connect with you. And I can't just connect through phone. And it's like this upfront honesty seems to help convert the client into wanting to do it as well.
Yeah, I think that's Johnny's real good way of what he does, is he takes something and just applies it to like, hey, look, this is the way I am, and you obviously need help. So if we're going to do this, and we kind of have to do it my way because it's such something I prefer. It's not up to you. It's not about like I need to earn your trust. It's like I need to trust you if I'm going to do business.
He's almost like transparent. He's like transparent about it. Like, look, I need to see this because how else would you ever want to trust somebody that's potentially wanting to help you retire? Right? Right now.
I think, he just makes it something that he needs out of the meeting versus what the client needs.
Yeah.
Makes sense? So, I don't know. It's phenomenal.
And the client might even suggest that they're okay with it, not doing a video. And that's a mistake too. Right? Like if the client's even saying like, oh no, we could just chat on the phone.
Phone call,
it's like a cop out. And if I was not wanting to do video chat, I would comply with the client and be there. But you've got to know as an advisor that if that's the case, it's like the wife not showing up to the appointment.
That's exactly it. Oh, the wife doesn't need to be here. I make the decisions.
I make the decisions. But you as an advisor know that's not going to happen, right? Like, you're not going to close that deal.
Absolutely.
But that's the new world in the video world, right? Like, if they decide they don't want to do it, they might be okay with not doing a video, but you're not going to close the deal. It's just going to be pushed off. And you want it now, right? You want to move it now. And likely it's the best decision for the client too. Is like, let's move some money now. Let's secure some of this.
It's funny how in sales, like, I don't remember who said it. Somebody said it. It's always the same thing. Like an objection is just an objection, and all the objections are the same objections. Like, it's obviously getting around them, but it's funny how you can so quickly relate that, right? Like, you always had, the spouse objection's been one for, 40 years, 50 years.
Same
as long
snack
as sales.
in a different wrapper,
It's
right?
it. It's exactly it. Now it's like, the spouse isn't here, but, it's funny how the things tie together like that.
It is.
But
yeah, it's good stuff. Obviously, we're going to be talking a whole bunch more about this over the next few weeks and everything. But it does sound like we're starting to see a light at the end of this tunnel, and people are starting to get back to it. And we're probably not too far away from people wanting to do live events again. And
that's what he was saying. He was saying he was having some walk-ins, right?
Yeah. People walking into his office
as well. Because I know Louisiana got hit pretty hard. They were on the shutdown.
But they're also one of the states that's continuing to plummet, even as more and more testings come up. You think like the more they test, more people would show positive. But they're showing the same, or if not still declining results, and more testing coming out. So New Orleans is bouncing back quick, and they're obviously opening up quicker, and Johnny's obviously But the thing you got to remember about Johnny is that he's everywhere.
Yep,
right.
I know
Like he
that,
works all over the country. He's got a lot of connections and different workshops. And
walk-in could have been anywhere from Texas to Alabama. Yeah.
And he's got his team spread around.
Yep.
Right. So
That's
there's
true.
that. But anyway, good stuff. Obviously, we've got more to talk about on this subject, but I think we're probably moving in the right direction.
I think
right?
so. I think, like you said, light at the end of the tunnel. It's uncertain times, but getting more certain.
Yeah, every day. Every day I feel a little more like we're opening up. Obviously, in Florida, we're doing that. Northeast, still a long ways out. But anyway, man, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk a little bit more as we find more and more cases of advisors doing spectacular
Some great things.
There,
yeah,
right?
absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Rick. See ya. Thank everybody for joining us here on Coffee for Closers. We'll see you next week. We're going to be talking with more folks that are handling this whole pandemic really well. And, geez, man, I hope everybody's staying safe out there. And we'll see you next time here on Coffee for Closers.